Hello and welcome to the Sea Hope podcast. I am Gary and this is John, and we are going to be looking through the uh, Anthony Albanese and Peter Dutton debate that happened last week. We want to go through and do some fact checking. We see if we can find the hope within these two leaders, and what we're going to we'll see what happens. We'll give you our honest commentary as well, and we'll give you our honest, political views on this as well. So before we get started, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, share the show with all your friends. If you hit that like button, every like is a high five to John. Let's get started. John, do you want to start with kind of where you sit in politics first?
So before COVID, family background, I guess, is what influenced. But my dad was in the rails, but would never participate in any strike action. He would take the day off sick, so he didn't have to strike. He's a liberal, more personal responsibility rather than what can I get from the government, I guess. And so that's sort of my perception, but I would not put my shoe in or my foot in for Liberal or Labor at this point.
And so do you line up behind some sort of independent at the moment?
Just any independent. I don't.
Yeah, it's just that was the big slogan back in last election was to put the main two last.
Yeah. I don't think there's any conviction in Liberal or Labor. It's just talking points, political talking points from each party.
Yeah. Do you have any? Is there another party that you hate more than these two, or are these two the
Hate.
or like they dislike?
I would say I align less with the Greens than I do either one of those. But
that's what I was kind of getting at. I know you're not a big fan of the Greens, and neither am I. For me,
I reckon a lot of them believe what they say in the Greens, where Labor and Liberal, I wouldn't say the same. But
yeah. So, yeah, I am used to be grew up same thing, Liberal supporter. Not because of my family, but because I was in the army. They normally would scratch the army's back, and so I was like, well, if they're going to look after us, I better vote them in, right? And so that's kind of where I've lined up most of the time in terms of my voting. More recently, after I guess COVID was that catalyst again, I have become a bit more disenfranchised with the two major parties. They're too similar. It's not just that. There was a few things that really upset me with the Liberals, who I thought was a more conservative party. The plebiscite for gay marriage was one of them that they I didn't think they would be the ones to bring in gay marriage. I'm not a I am against the redefining of gay marriage, redefining of marriage. Sorry, I should say. I think there was a different way of going about that, and I don't think putting in those definitions into marriage was the right way to go. But yeah.
So would you say going into this, you're a skeptic both sides?
Yes. There's definitely policies I prefer. But like I think they're both got some policies that I like. Um, but it's just we'll wait and see, because honestly, I don't have a lot of faith in them, because half their promises don't ever happen either.
Don't materialize.
They don't materialize. So trust them as far as you can throw them.
So my other question is, you just said you would vote for Liberals because they support the army.
Yeah, they support the army,
So
which is something.
supporting you.
It was yeah. So it was mostly because the guys I was in the army with ended up, like, it was when I joined, and I was at basic training. There was the election happened, and so they kind of drilled it into you to to vote for. And I was young, impressionable, and so I voted while I was on base, and they kind of encouraged like go for Liberal because they're the ones who are paying us to be here, kind of thing.
And so, would you say you would vote for someone that improves your personal circumstance over someone that would improve Australia?
Back then, I didn't really know. It was mostly just.
But now,
now it's completely different. I don't need something to make it easier on me, kind of thing. I want to see Australia kind of be lifted back up to, I guess, what Australia was back in the day. Um, Australians have got this awesome energy around the world that people looked at Australians and be like, man, they're hardcore. You look at it, they're picking up snakes with their hands, and they don't care. They pick up spiders with their hands. It's the most dangerous place on earth, apparently. But we've kind of lost that kind of coolness factor, and like how we did, like we defined ourselves in the First and Second World War as a people who work together, that we can get through it, and we come up with some crazy ways to do things, but we're also stubborn and made sure that we weren't going to get pushed around, even though we were so small at the time. We had something
small,
yeah,
as in population,
we had
definitely.
something to prove, and now we're kind of just. I feel like Australia is a bit of a sellout. It's not Australia anymore. We've kind of not really held on to the values that we used to kind of hold on to. Fair go, hard work. It's just, we'll just cater to all the different cultures coming in. We used to be called a Christian country, and now we're just a multicultural country. There's nothing unifying there. There's just division. All I see. I mean, I don't have someone against someone kind of celebrating some of the traditions and stuff they might have from, or like teaching their kids, but like when it comes to like laws and like you want to be Australian when you're here. Like it's not just like you can teach your heritage, but like your number one should be like, but we're Australian now and we're going to be Australian.
Yeah. So one of my family friends' grandfathers, so they moved in from South Africa.
Mm.
And we asked him what it meant to come to Australia. What was like, what made it different to being back home, and what have you given up, sort of thing.
Mm.
And he goes, the reason we've come here is because the opportunities and the safety wasn't presented over back home.
Yeah.
So we've come over here, and what it means now is that if Australia went to war with South Africa, I'm on Australia's side.
He's on Australia's side.
Yeah, yeah.
If we had a world war today, I don't know if everyone would line up behind Australia. And I was actually having a chat about war and if Australia's shores were kind of threatened. 10 years ago, I was 100%. I was like, man, how can I protect my family? How can I protect my country? Now it's more just like, well, how can I protect my family?
So you're part of the problem, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I feel like I'm a bit disenfranchised with Australia right now.
All right. Well, hopefully we get some answers here.
See how we go, hey?
See what's to come.
So yeah, we've got the this is from Sky News. We're just going to start the video, stop the video when we have some talking points, and we'll see what happens. We're going to provide our honest commentary, and if we can, we'll try bring up some fact checking as well.
We'll definitely try to give critiques when necessary, but then positive feedback as well.
Yeah,
when we can find it.
That's right.
Chosen independently by Q&A Market Research, all undecided voters. And we're here at the Weddy Leagues in the beautiful town of Wentworthville in Parramatta, the seat of Parramatta. The Prime Minister will speak first. We've had a toss of the coin. PM, over to you.
Well, thanks very much, Kieran, and thanks, Peter, for agreeing to this debate, and thanks to all the audience here at Weddy Leagues Club. the home of the Magpies, for joining us here today. Look, the world has thrown a lot of challenges at Australia in the last few years. We've had the COVID pandemic, followed by the biggest inflation spike since the 1980s and the biggest energy crisis since.
Do you think any of these? We've already watched this, by the way. We're going through this again.
Independently, not together.
Yeah, not together. So we actually haven't heard each other's thoughts on it. But I reckon half of these people were planted there.
No, that's just speculation, though.
Yeah, 100%.
But it's Sky News is hosting.
Yeah.
Do you reckon that's going to be in favour of Albanese or?
Generally speaking, Sky News has been a fan of, I guess, the Liberal Party or the Independents even.
Oh, the right of centre.
Yeah, the right of centre kind of thing. I'm gonna try to get something up. I'm gonna continue. Oh, that's what I want, but I don't want it up there. All right, I'll get this video going and we can continue. Sorry for the interruption. All right, let's start. Let's get back to the video.
Is how you respond. And we've responded the Australian way. Thanks to the hard work of Australians, including the people in this room, inflation is down to 2.4%. Wages are up. They've been up 5 quarters in a row, real wages. Unemployment is low at 4.1%. We've created 1 million jobs, and importantly, interest rates have stayed.
So those jobs that he's talking about were mostly public sector jobs.
And probably, so I've spoken to a ton of people. So this is just no statistics here, but the people that I've met, a lot of them work in disability. It's like insane how many people you bump into that work in disability. So that NDIS, you know how they're talking about cutting back on all the spending because it's been a place like a slush fund. That's like so many jobs, unbelievable, like insane.
I didn't know we had that many. I think they've put the umbrella for disability very, very wide.
Yeah, well, I mean that's a problem with social programs. Is it's not a ladder up. It's a race to the bottom. You have to hit that threshold to get the benefit.
Yeah. All right, I'll continue with this, and we'll keep going.
Started to fall. What this election is about, though, is what happens next. Whether we continue to build on those foundations with a tax cut for all 14 million Australians, strengthening Medicare, including those bulk billing rates getting up to 90%, and making sure we have urgent care clinics, free TAFE, the 20% off student debt, and making more things here in Australia through A Future Made in Australia. Now, you can't control everything that happens, and we know in the world it's uncertain, but I'm absolutely certain of this. Now is not the time to cut. Now is not the time to look backwards. Now is the time to look forward and seize the opportunities and build Australia's future.
So he's talking about tax cuts. I welcome that.
Yeah, I welcome the tax cuts as well. But he said he calls them permanent tax cuts. Now, is that permanent as on the basis of he keeps getting elected?
No, it's permanent until it gets changed.
Well, that's not permanent then.
Yeah. Previously, he's talking about how we bounced back from COVID and then inflation and then energy crisis. Energy crisis, I'd say, when you once the states sell off their assets in the energy market and then they get regulated to the hellhole, it's going to cause an energy crisis. Businesses are designed to make money, so obviously that's their goal, is not to save people money.
Yes.
So when the government forego having any money in that infrastructure, that's just the product of that. And then I think Albo here, he has a point that he hasn't really got to, and I don't think he does at all. We'll see. The inflation is a direct result of the spending through COVID,
Yes.
which was
I think they actually mentioned that later on, but
but that's like a home run for him.
yeah, but like I don't think he actually nailed it home as much as he could have.
It's so easy. Like the other
I think
yeah.
I think Pete Dutton actually uses it. He goes, the spending we did was it was bipartisan, but Labor actually wanted to spend more.
Yeah, they did, but also
So they're both for it. So it's not just it's not really a home run when they were both for it.
inflation too is just taxation without representation. So
Yeah, it's just printing more money.
Printing more money, they're spending more money and then printing more money than we pay for it through inflation, rather than through actual formal tax.
Yeah.
And then a whole lot of this will be how much money can we spend in hospitals, schools, and wherever else.
Yeah.
And rather than going, what do Australians actually need?
Yeah. So Dutton, we'll get to that. But Dutton's talking about energy and the fuel excise and stuff like that.
All right,
let's keep going.
Prime Minister, thank you. Mr. Dutton.
Thanks very much, Kieran. Thank you, Anthony, for being here tonight. And thank you very much to the audience. I think your stories tonight will reflect the realities and the stories of millions of Australians. And it has been a tough year, a tough 3 years, in fact, for Australians. People have seen the government make mistakes, starting with the Voice and priorities that just haven't accorded with your own priorities.
Jobs
Almost 30,000 small businesses have gone broken behind each one of those stories.
Jobs.
There is somebody who's lost their house or lost their life savings.
24.
People have gone backwards because when you go to the supermarket now, you're now paying 30% more for groceries.
Can you pause it?
Paying about 32% more for your electricity. And the Prime Minister promised at one...
He's just mentioned the groceries costing more. That's inflation. And then...
well, it's not just inflation. Like, because fuel and energy have gone up a lot, that drives up prices of groceries a lot. Prices of eggs are going up because we killed chickens, because of the fear of this bird flu. There's a bunch of different factors there, but yeah, inflation is something that's helped, has made all those things go up dramatically. But I think fuel was a big one, fuel and energy. If we're not on top of that, apparently the war in Ukraine really affected our, bringing in fuel. And so I don't understand how.
Fuel? What do they have that we need?
As in, like, I think we were buying, well, I think it's the other countries were buying fuel off of Russia, and then they've tariffed.
So the gas was pumped through Ukraine. They cut it off.
Yeah, I don't think that's the only export that's been... It's not that we're buying from Ukraine, because we don't buy our petrol from Ukraine at all. But if there's, something going down somewhere, then it needs to be... other countries will then have to go get it somewhere else. And so there's put up competition elsewhere, like...
So supply and demand.
Yeah. And so that's why they have said fuel has gone up, things like that.
One of these debates at the last election that your power bills would go down by 275.
That's a good talking point that he has. Like promises made and not delivered.
Yes. Yeah. And the energy bill was a big one. He promised energy would come down 200 and something bucks, but it actually went up.
Yeah.
I was driving on the highway today and someone's written on the wall, Peter Dutton has no eyebrows, and it's something that I've never really seen until now, looking at him.
Okay. Good point.
I'm sorry, I'm in pain. I've played a bit of squash tonight and ran myself into the wall and lost. All right, let's continue.
$5. Instead, they're up by $1,300. I want to provide support to Australians from the first day that we're elected, and that is through a 25 cent a litre cut to fuel, both diesel and unleaded, It'll help families, it'll help businesses, it'll help pensioners, and it will help the economy. In addition to that, we want to make sure that we can get gas for Australians so that we can fix up the energy system, which is driving up the cost of everything. And
that would be a good one if you can get that going. The gas companies should be supplying Australia domestically before it heads overseas with all its exports. They keep telling us we have got a gas shortage, but we really don't. We've got.
I don't get
we're
why
the biggest exporter of gas in the world.
I don't get why it's a 1 year thing for the.
Well, he just puts it as we might need that money back later on. So like what we save right now, we can then bring that excise back, and
I tell you what, if he had me running his household budget the way that they run theirs, like I'm external to his family,
yeah,
he would get rid of me within a day. No, like you gotta don't sign blank checks.
yeah,
It never works out well. But two, it's like the money that they see. It's not as if it's. They just see it as a blank check. So they're not going to be responsible with that. They're just promising money in every field to solve issues that aren't really. So with schools, you can put billions and billions of dollars into schools.
Yep.
If you got poor teachers, as in poor educators,
yes,
then it's just still going to be just as bad.
So when I was studying at one stage to be a teacher, and one of the things they were talking about was the amount of money they've put into Aboriginal communities in terms of education, and I can't remember what it was, but it was a staggering amount. And they said, but nothing's changed, so we need to give them more money. And it's like it came to like I think every student is like I think it comes to about 21,000 per student per year in Australia for just any student. But I think when it came to them, it was like 90,000 per student, and it was just like
these are real numbers.
They just need more. Yeah, fact check me. They just need more money.
That's just every government department making decisions. Always, if only we had more money, it would have worked.
Need more money.
It would have worked but that's not how it works.
I think government is the worst business in the world.
Yeah, because they're not
beholden to anything.
Anything. They're guaranteed their term for the 3 years. They get paid.
Yep, and they then settle on a what do you call it? The pension. They get in, get out. They're set for life.
They changed it after the Rudd, Turnbull.
Yeah,
Tony.
I reckon that was all a big scam. I reckon they were doing that on purpose.
Give everyone the pension.
Yeah, give everyone the pension. Just getting their buddies through, cycle them through.
Continue, please, Mister.
Continuing.
If we can do that, we can get our country back on track. That's a positive plan that I want to talk about, and I want to say thank you very much for being here tonight.
Mr. Dutton, thank you very much. We've got our first question. Michael. Thanks, Michael.
Thank you. Thank you.
I've got a question to both the Prime Minister and Mr. Dutton. We came out of COVID and the economy did really well after that, and we're still going well at the moment. How are we going to cope with the Trump pandemic that we're going through right now? And what's your strategy around getting Australia on the right foot going forward?
So he's talking about Australia doing well. A lot of people don't feel like we're doing well, but we're doing well in comparison with other countries.
Yeah,
is kind of what he's saying, which is good.
Our bounce back was
pretty
good. Yeah.
But people are still feeling it. Like
but
the people on the ground are feeling it.
The issue is when you're spending money, right? Once the inflation's hit, and the price of eggs is $6, it might settle back down to 2.5%, but the eggs still cost us $6.
Yeah, they're never going to bring down those.
It doesn't go back unless you.
I mean,
I've never seen a negative.
Probably the only thing that goes backwards.
I haven't seen a negative inflation.
Yeah, we haven't gone backwards in inflation ever.
It's a great question. Prime Minister, first to you.
Yeah, thanks very much, Michael. And indeed, Australians did show extraordinary resilience during the global pandemic, and we came through that, but it had a long tail that's still having an impact today, and
that's
straight afterwards, followed by inflation.
Yeah.
Now, President Trump has made a decision that I've called an act of economic self-harm for the United States. When you impose tariffs, it's a tax on the country that is imposing it. So Americans will pay more for the goods that they purchase from overseas. And that will have...
Is that not the same as GST?
What do you mean?
So if I buy... So the watch I got for my brother...
Yes.
Over in Germany...
Yeah.
It was a considerable amount of money. Not crazy money. I'm not that rich. But enough to...
Super rich.
Enough to warrant this.
John's just generous. He may not have a lot, but he's very generous.
Yeah.
John and his family.
So I bought it. Oh, actually, I can't even remember how much it was. I got so much money.
Just
no, but
just give us round figures. It doesn't need to be exact. Just give us.
I can't even remember. Maybe $3 grand.
Just give us examples.
$3 grand. We'll say $3 grand.
We'll say it's $3 grand.
Actually, I think it was a little bit more.
That doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
Anyway,
let's break it down.
The point is that once I imported it into Australia, I had to pay GST on that.
Yes.
I suspected as much, but didn't know 100% because I don't buy.
Goods and service.
I don't buy that sort of priced items from overseas. So once it got here, I had to pay that. If I had factored that in and knew exactly how much I was spending, I might have looked at the same sort of watch here. Obviously, over in Europe and America, they have more variety of, or there's more watches to buy within that year model and stuff like that because they've got a bigger population to sell to than over here.
Yeah.
And then the quality potentially is greater because there's a higher volume of watches.
Yeah.
But anyway,
you got more makers.
Is that not the exact same thing as a GST? Like a tariff is saying if you bring it in here, 10%.
Well, it is. Yeah. That's subject to change, but
and VAT tax.
At the moment of this recording, it's 10% on everything coming in.
No, but that's what GST is here. And so if we get something from overseas, we have to put GST on top of that.
But isn't it just GST on top of any goods and services, not just stuff from overseas, it's any goods and services exchanged within Australia gets taxed and given to the big dog up there.
But that's the same as if we take something over to America and they put 10% on it.
Yeah.
There's no difference there? You're hearing what I'm saying? The same with the VAT tax in Europe?
Yeah.
If you try to...
Yeah, but I guess the difference there is that I guess the hope would be that the companies bringing in the stock to sell, they're either going to have to wear that 10% or they're going to have to pass it on to the consumer,
or look for local
source. Yeah, that's right. Look for local sources. So anything bought within their country is subject to their
that's the
tariff.
idea.
Yeah,
is not to actually collect on the tariff, is to use everything domestically.
Yeah, well, that's the hope. They want manufacturing back to America. They want the manufacturing within the country. So those people who are manufacturing in the country already are cheering at the sight of these tariffs that he's doing. And Australia doesn't really have much power there in terms of any sort of kind of tariff because we only are consumers really here. We export materials, that's about it. We don't really export many goods other than food and wool.
Okay.
And camels, apparently. We're the biggest exporter of camels in the world.
Where to?
The Middle East.
All right. There you go.
There you go.
An impact here because we know that as the world's largest economy, it's expected to dampen global economic growth, so it does present a challenge. But last Thursday, we were prepared. Australia got the best deal of any country on the planet. 10% is 10% more than we would like, but no one got a better deal than us, in part because of the representations that we've made. But we were prepared as well. No country is better positioned to take advantage of the trade opportunities. And it's important to remember this. 80% of global trade doesn't involve the United States. So in our region in particular, there will be opportunities for Australia that we want to seize. We've said we'll have global trade missions following the missions that I've led to Indonesia, to India and China.
A little too much as well.
Looking for opportunities for businesses.
How do you mean?
We'll create a fund through our National Reconstruction Fund of $1 billion to help businesses adjust here. We'll continue to negotiate, of course, with the United States, looking for a better deal for Australia because reciprocal tariffs would, of course, be zero because we don't impose tariffs on US goods.
We might hear from Mr Dutton. Thanks.
Well, Michael, thank you for your question. I sat around the cabinet table when we negotiated with Trump Mark I presidency, and we negotiated an outcome for Australia which is much better than what we had today, and it meant that Australia was excluded from the first round of tariffs imposed by President Trump. I also sat around the cabinet table, the National Security Committee when we went through COVID. And the support that we provided to families, to employees, to employers, kept our economy going through a very rough period. And I know that we can deal with whatever comes our way. One of the great things about living in the greatest country in the world is that whatever is thrown at us, the Prime Minister of the day should have the ability and the strength of character to be able to stand up against bullies, against those that would seek to do us harm, to keep our country safe and to make sure that we can make the right economic decisions for our country as well. And that's exactly what I would seek to do as Prime Minister.
Let's hear from Monica now. Thank you, Monica.
Thank you. I work for the Department of Education, and I've seen that there's quite a big difference between public versus private. And I was wondering if we're getting any sort of funding towards public education in the near future.
To make private happen.
Mr Dutton, kick that one off.
Well, I think it's an incredibly important
how much would you spend
question, and it's important because parents have a choice to make, and whether that's for the public system or for the private system.
Thought about it.
We have supported both, and we support increased funding going into this election as well. And there's a position which is identical between the two parties in relation to funding for public schools and for private schools as well. I think it is important that parents are able to have that choice and that we can fund the infrastructure and that we can support teacher development and make sure that we've got an education system which is fit for purpose. We live in an incredibly competitive environment, and we need to make sure that the outcomes in our schools are
if you're going to get free education,
standards and expectations of students and parents and teachers and educators more generally. And that requires money, it requires commitment, and
I think doing
thank you very much for the great work you do.
Giving parents
PM.
Well, thanks very much, Monica, for your question. And I know anyone who's
put like
a public school teacher.
It costs $21,000 on average to.
And one of the things we've had to deal with is the last time government changed in Australia in 2013, in the 2014 budget, $30 billion was ripped out of public schools in that budget. $50 billion was ripped out of hospitals. And we've had to deal with that for a long time. You'd be aware way back, now more than a decade ago, there was the Gonski reforms, which were about giving, put simply, every child to get fair funding, so that if they fall behind, they can get that assistance. Now, we've delivered that in a deal negotiated with every single state and territory in the country, $14.6 billion of additional dollars, so that every student...
I don't get how he finds fairness if there's disparity in people's ability to do a test. I'm going to get a different result to you.
Yeah.
And you're going to get a different result to someone else, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's no level playing field. If you're smarter and get things faster than I do, that's the way it is.
Yeah, but it's not just that you're putting I guess testing on certain criteria. You're not testing on, like, I would say, and school crushed me. I was kicking goals until I got to, let's say,
kindergarten. Preschool
further. Probably like year 3 or something, when we actually started doing a lot more stuff. Like, I was kicking goals, and then just the amount of like bookwork, stuff like that. Like, I really embraced maths. I was kicking goals in maths still. I was good at that, but everything else just kind of crushed me. I was a kid that wants to run around outside and learn by doing, but those kind of sitting down in classes and stuff was just killing me. And I think it really affected me moving forward. Talking to my parents, and that's kind of something my mum had reflected on.
But there's no even playing field. That's more the point. Like,
well, yeah, I think yeah, I think that's where I kind of come to again on. Probably if I'm gonna have if I have a son, I would probably want to teach him differently,
or work out what he's like first, and then adapt to that.
Adapt to that. Well, I think that's where homeschooling kind of gives you the best ability to be able to do that. And like half of school is just admin type stuff, like school assemblies and things like that. Half of it's just jargon, just talk.
Anyway,
doing the roll every morning, there's stuff that you can, if you left out everything, I think talking to parents that homeschool their kids, they can get all their schooling done within a couple of hours.
Yeah, so when I did math in year 10, I would play a lot of Call of Duty at night and sleep through some of the classes.
Yep.
Yeah. Anyway, in math, the teacher didn't like me very much, so she would wake me up to get me to do my schoolwork, and she'd tell me what we're doing. Why don't you have your book out, your textbook out? I'd get the textbook out, put my head on the textbook. Why don't you have your workbook out? I'll get my workbook out, put my head on it. And then she'd go, why don't you have your pencil out or your pen out or whatever? And then I get that out, and then head would be resting on them.
I'm surprised you don't have everything out ready and then put your people.
And then
you wouldn't learn.
No, because she was gonna keep going.
You were pretty terrible.
She's like, no, you got to do the work, sort of thing. So
yeah,
she would say, you know how you'd have
unteachable.
No, easy. So they'd have
What'd you get?
What?
What'd you get for maths? You're actually pretty good at maths.
Yeah, maths. Easy.
Yeah, what'd you get?
In what?
I don't know. HSC.
I don't know. I think I was at 72%. Or 68%. It was like zero study.
Must have been a really dumb year.
That's that.
Well, isn't HSC like you're like top 70 in Australia kind of thing?
Oh no, it's a percentage in the test. The overall mark is relative to everyone else.
Okay.
Anyway, so the point.
ATAR, that's your ranking, right?
Yeah, no, that was rubbish. 0 assessments, 0 homework, 0 study. Went all right.
70%.
In math, easy. Like it's just numbers. It's pretty easy. Anyway, she would
get
at
numbers, racking up those kills. You had to count up to those.
She would go, oh, now you got to do the work, and she'd go from pages X to Y, right, or Y to X, and
X to Y.
I would look at the example, and like it's really easy. You just go, okay, so I'd need to apply that example to all these questions, and I just do it, bang, 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 and 10 minutes later, I'd have all the 2 pages of work or whatever had to be done, and she's like what? Why is your head down again? Rah rah. You go, I've done the work, and she'd be like, oh, was it showing? Like you have to show you working out. I'm like, but we got the example there. I just did the example and applied it to all the questions and got all the answers. And then she goes, well, now you got to do more, like as in extra.
Could you and the kids the working on one and then do the rest?
No, I could do I could keep track in my head where I was up to with an equation.
For your teacher's sake, you'd be like, I will do this one.
No.
And you can.
And also when we had the non-calculated test, you remember the non-calculated tests?
Nope.
Okay. So there will be every, I think, couple of years or every year, you do one test without calculators, and it was basic stuff, but I was able to do that fastest.
I'm probably
highest.
I remember doing tests without calculators. I mean, we didn't get calculators until we were in high school.
No, I'm talking about in high school. You do these tests.
I can't remember much of high school really. And that's
Anyway.
not because I'd probably hit my head.
But do you reckon I would get
I'm very
support
accident prone.
these days with all the support these days? Being a kid that sleeps through class,
Yeah, they'd be throwing all the money at you.
it's just a waste. One, there's no fairness, and like the kids that could be even brighter if they had the support.
You'd probably be coming.
You're denying that.
They'd probably tell you got ADHD. You'd probably get diagnosed, and then you'll get extra funding that way.
They did diagnose me. It was a lie.
Well, then
They lied to me.
they lied to you. Well, then they would have thrown heaps of money at you as well.
Private school.
I don't know what the private school does.
Anyway, we'll keep going with this.
Whether they're going to a public school or a private school can get the funding that they deserve, and that includes the deal so that they get
Yeah, what do they deserve?
proper support. So that if a child falls behind, at the moment NAPLAN is a bit too late. We want to do testing in year 1, so if a child falls behind, they can get that specialist one-on-one tutoring or small group to make sure that they don't fall behind.
So
because
support,
if you
right?
address that
If you
really
only swim
early,
with floaties
then every
and
child
then all of a
can
sudden
have the
take off the
opportunity to
floaties, can you
fulfil
swim?
their aspirations.
Kieran, I
Yeah,
just
but
want to
like,
follow
they're
up on
talking
that,
about
if I could just
support,
very
so,
quickly. The fact is,
If you need, that's not the same example. So it's the example would be, if you're in swimming lessons, all right, everyone's got floaties, you're in swimming lessons. If you take off the floaties and you're not ready to take off those floaties, they would get someone else in to then kind of coach you through it one-on-one. That would be the kind of support to then. So like if everyone else has progressed and you're not progressing as fast as everyone else, they're not just going to let you drown. They'll then, they'll give you the floaties, or they might give you half a floaty. So they might need a floaty that can only be half the amount. I don't know.
Head underwater.
They need to get in a special floaty for you, special order.
Don't you think that
inflated floaty?
the adversity galvanizes you though?
What do you mean? Sorry.
The adversity galvanizes you, so you learn more from
adversity.
From the adversity, so being behind, and so my younger sister.
It depends on the person, really. Some people will go, "Yeah, I need to work harder," and other people will be like, "I'm so far behind. There's no point in trying." I mean,
but that's a personal choice.
It is a personal choice, and it all comes down to, I guess,
if the parents aren't willing to pay for tutors and extra, why would taxpayers, other people paying for your kid?
Yeah, it's fair. Or the parents actually putting in the time with their kid. That's probably what needs to happen the most. Where we're supplementing good parenting
with poor teaching,
with extra poor teaching.
Is that there were no cuts. The Prime Minister goes out with this Medicare campaign and the Education Scare campaign. It is not a truthful statement. Now, what the Prime Minister is saying is that the funding didn't go up by as much as he would want each year, but there was no year where funding was cut from hospitals or from education. When I was Health Minister, we increased hospital funding by 16%. Now, the Prime Minister might say it should have gone up by more. That's fine for him to say that. But to say that the funding was cut, and you can go and have a look at the budget papers, that is not a factually correct statement. It's misleading, it's designed to scare people, and I think it's dishonest from a man who wants to be re-elected as the Prime Minister of our country.
Well, Kieran, it is a fact.
Somebody actually
said
to me before I watched this.
There's line items really explicitly. $50 billion savings in health. $30 billion savings in education.
Did funding go down each year, Prime Minister, or not?
$30 billion from the funding that was in the budget before the change of government occurred.
All right, Jason, thank you.
G'day, I'm Jason. I'm from Stanhope in the western suburbs. Selfish question. I've got a second-year uni student at home. My concern is, so with the Liberal Party's position on immigration and students from overseas, how will those universities pick up the shortfall, and will my son's uni fees increase?
Jason, the short answer is...
Jason.
Thanks, mate. Thank you. The short answer is no, because what we do as a government is we provide that funding to universities, and obviously there's a help scheme where students are paying for part of their own education.
Like getting a degree used to be like things. I guess I don't know if you agree with this or not, but like used to be you had to have more money to be able to get to that degree, and so the rich were were able to get the degrees. Like we're able to put.
Are you talking about like 1800s, or what are you talking about?
100. I don't know. The universities haven't been around since the 1800s, have they?
Have to be.
Have to be. When did university in Australia?
No, but what are you talking about? More recently or earlier on is more the hyperbolic question.
So I guess we have a system where we can use HECS. The government will put up a loan for you to be able to do your
degree,
and so you can, without being actually prepared for it or being able to do the degree, you can get that loan and try to do the degree. How many students get settled with all that debt who should never have been going for that degree? Back in the day, you actually had to get a loan from a bank, and you had to prove to the bank that you were good on that loan, that you were going to come through that. And now it's completely just throw whoever we want into the grinder, and we'll just hit you with that debt, and then you have to pay it off. And then Albo comes along and he's like, we're going to get rid of 20% of it.
Thomas Sowell also, he makes a point where the question was posed to him, if everyone just got degrees, would we not just have people like a productive, more rich society? And he puts the analogy to him saying, if I stand up in a stadium to see the game better, I'll see the game better. But if everyone stands up at the same time, I might not see the game any better.
Yeah.
So everyone having a degree doesn't make everyone richer.
No.
Because it just floods the market with the same sorts of people.
Yeah. So I guess the thing is that the people who could afford to do degrees back in the day were the rich, because they didn't have HECS debt and stuff like that. And so it was either the rich, or you had to prove to a bank that you were worth investing in. Or there has been the rare occasions where you've shown a company that you're worth investing in, and they've put you through uni as well. I remember a story of two brothers who just kept getting parts for certain things, and then they kept contacting the business and going, oh, can you send it? Do you have any of these parts and stuff? And so he ended up getting like free parts from the company, and then the owner ended up going, oh, I wonder what these kids are doing. And so they were building stuff. And so he's like, when you guys are old enough, I'll put you through university and you can come work for me. And they went on to doing great things.
And
then there were more.
Well, what we've done, though, is that we've said under the government's program, they've brought in about 1 million people over the last 2 years. Now, that's a higher number, in fact, by 70% higher than any 2-year period in our country's history.
This isn't a very good
The government will bring in under the migration program, so this big Australia policy that Anthony never spoke anything about before the last election.
So
that will be about 2 million people over 5 years, a population bigger than Adelaide. So if we ask why we've got a housing crisis and why it's difficult, we can point to that because there's massive demand for housing, and Australian kids are missing out, and rents are up by about 18%. I want desperately to make sure that we get an opportunity for young people to believe in and achieve again the dream of home ownership. There are about 42 international students coming into our country for every one student accommodation unit that's been approved, and that has had a big impact. So it doesn't impact on the cost of a domestic student going to university, but it will change the dynamic within many universities because, for example, at the Sydney University, you've now got a much higher mix in terms of international students to domestic students, which changes the dynamic on campus. But I want to make sure that we can get Australian kids into housing as quickly as possible. We can't do that because obviously if 1 million people come here over 2 years, they want a house for themselves and their family as well.
And the Australians
the government just hasn't been building the housing.
Jason, you happy with that? And if you've got a question for the Prime Minister as well?
I've got a follow-up question just in regards to part of Australia, our way of life is sharing our way of life with the rest of the world. So part of our humanity is doing good. And so us training other people from all around the world gives them an open opportunity to witness our Australianism. And so by not allowing those students to come to Australia, it actually hurts our brand worldwide.
We've had quite a...
Thanks,
Jason. We've had quite a few, as you know,
brand's been destroyed already.
Foreign students become ministers, prime ministers. It's a good soft power tool, isn't it?
Kieran, look, I think we are
soft power.
Not only the best country in the world, but I think we've been made better because of our migration story. When you look at the migration story to our country, particularly since the Second World War, people have come out of war-torn Europe, people have come out of Asia, all parts of the world. We're an incredibly lucky country for it.
Yeah.
But the numbers of international students have increased by 65% over the course of the last couple of years. Now, that is a dramatic increase. So I'm all in favour of a well-managed migration program, but I'm not in favour of what the Prime Minister has done by flooding the market. And a person is coming in every 44 seconds into our country, and we haven't got the housing to accommodate that. We need to get the sequencing right, and it's why we're putting $5 billion into a program to create 500,000 new homes.
Let's hear from Mr Albanese.
Thanks very much, Kieran.
And they look...
Everyone here knows that after COVID finished, when the borders were up, when Australians, including Australians from the community around here in Wentworthville, couldn't actually come home because they were barred from that, you were going to get an uplift. Truth is, the population today is lower than what was anticipated in 2019 it was going to be. The migration levels fell in the last year by 31%.
I mean, it's not a lot.
We introduced legislation to put a cap on student numbers. The Coalition and the Greens voted against it in the Senate, so it couldn't get through. We want a reasonable cap that protects the universities because their funding levels is connected with this, that makes sure, though, that we get that balance right. And on housing, we've got a $33 billion Homes for Australia plan. That has seen, in part, we have 28,000 social housing units either under construction or in planning as we speak right today. There's been 400,000 homes built, homes or units built since we came to office. We've got a target of 1.2 million. We do need to do more to build housing, but that is what we are doing. The former government didn't even have a housing minister for some of the time that they were in office.
I know, speaking to a number of the audience before we started, that cost of living is a big issue for a lot of you, and a few nods in the audience. Can I just get a show of hands? Who's doing it pretty tough? Who's finding it hard to get by at the moment, the way the economy is, cost of living pressures and so on? Yeah, that's quite a few hands there. And, well, we know that. I'm not telling you both anything there, but I guess it raises the question, PM, you did the tax cuts. Why not the fuel excise as well? Why not throw everything at that issue?
The fuel excise will disappear in a year, like the last time it happened, the 2022 election.
No reason not to do it.
From the Scott Morrison playbook. It came in for a year. What we want is things that are permanent.
But, you know,
so our tax cuts will be permanent. Free TAFE will be permanent. Taking 20% of student debt will be permanent. the reducing of medicines down to $25. The same costs that they were in 2004.
Why would I pay for someone else's university degree?
A long-term difference, and we've frozen the cost for pensioners
loans
to just $7.70
I know,
for the rest of the decade. So we understand cost of living pressures. That's why we've introduced as well energy rebates. All of these measures we've done, cheaper childcare, but all of them have been opposed by the coalition. We have put in place what we can to make a positive difference. We know that there's more to do.
Sorry, what do you mean?
You're going to receive...
I'm not going to receive money. I paid off my debt. I actually did the right thing. I shouldn't receive money. I don't think this will come...
It won't be retrospective?
No, they did that for the last one, and they said that it was because of... They changed it from indexing to... from indexing to inflation to indexing to wages, and so they said it wasn't fair, and so that's why you either got a decrease or a rebate. I think this one's just we're gonna take off 20%, so the government's gonna pay for 20% of everyone's.
So this is what I think with housing, as they were saying before. If they were to bring down the price of housing, it's going to affect people that have bought recently.
Yeah,
we've paid a premium for something that's now worth less.
Yeah.
So that's the same thing with education. If you take away debt, someone that's just finished paying it last week is out of pocket 20% of that debt.
Yeah.
And has done the right thing. And the people that the wheels that are squeaking now are getting the oil.
Yeah, and there's a large voter base with uni debts, and so that's why he's trying to hammer that home. But there's probably more working class, right, who don't have those debts.
But at the start, you're signing a contract saying, I want to become a teacher. This is a 4-year course. It's $5,000 a year. It was just numbers.
Round numbers.
You go,
so 20,000.
I will honour that.
Yeah.
I know it costs so much to get an education here. And you've agreed to it. You didn't have to agree to it. Like if I got a car on finance, you go, oh no, this costs so much money, but I want the car.
Yeah.
So I got to pay that debt.
You do have to pay that debt, and that's what we should be. The philosophy we should be following, right?
Personal responsibility. That's
personal
the thing.
Responsibility. We have no personal responsibility.
The government needs to come in and sweep in and be the saving grace, but they're using our money anyway.
Yeah.
It's a very weird concept.
Yep, I think that's because they're all getting paybacks from the universities to kind of get students into there and whatnot, and everyone's been sold a lie. Not defending like this 20% thing. Like I don't think it's a good idea.
I think they need to get their hands out of all these pies and just stick to defense and
import export.
Yeah, like minimal involvement, let
everything go to the states. I think you'd actually probably have, if the states had more power, you'd probably have a lot more different systems come up in the states, and then you'd be able to go to a state that kind of lined up with you a bit more, like the United States a bit more.
Okay.
And that's why we want to do it.
Mr. Dutton, I'll ask you the same question, but the other way around. You announced the reduction in the fuel excise. Yeah. Why not do the tax cuts as well? That's what people expect of Liberal Party leaders, don't they?
Well, Kieran, a couple of points. Firstly, I think that was a very confronting scene, if I might say, from where we're standing, to see the number of hands raised then of people who are working hard, people who have done everything they can in their own budgets to cut back on expenses and just to try and make things balance at the end of each week or the end of each fortnight or month.
And is that
as I said in my opening remarks, I think it's reflective of the broader population in Australia at the moment. And it's certainly similar to many of the conversations we've had as we've moved around the country.
You cut them,
people in tears, people who have taken their kids out of school, people who have stopped a doctor's appointment because they can't afford to pay to go to see the doctor under this government. The bulk billing rates have come down dramatically under this government. So I think we should be doing everything we can to provide support, but we need to do it in a way that is not inflationary, because with 12 interest rate rises, the worst thing that we could have is a big Labor Green spending government after the election, because that will be upward pressure again on interest rates, which will be a disaster for families, particularly with big mortgages. So our argument is that we want to provide support immediately through the 25-cent a litre reduction.
Means there's less money in the
part of the
system
tax
for all those programs.
that people are paying in their household budgets. Yes, there's income tax, but equally the fuel tax is 50 cents in every litre, and we're reducing that down to 25 cents a litre. We do it for 12 months and then we reassess it after that. The Prime Minister is baking in about $7.5 billion every year of recurrent expenditure, which is why Labor always builds up a structural spend in the budget, which ultimately contributes to their $1.2 trillion of debt. And that's what makes it harder, because the interest bill just continues to grow, and we should be spending that money on helping families and hospitals and services otherwise in the economy.
Let's hear from our next voter. This is Hiba.
Hi, so I'm from just around here, from Tingabi. I direct my question to both of you. I have many loved ones affected by the current genocide in Gaza carried out by the Israeli government at the moment. Our taxes are going towards the funding of weaponry, aiding the onslaught on the innocent people of Gaza. What are you doing to stop this Prime Minister and Opposition Leader? What will you do about this if you are elected?
We don't
Prime Minister, first you.
Well, thank you very much for the question.
Weaponry going over
I
to
certainly
Ukraine.
Understand that for many
I think we
Australians,
send money to Gaza, to Gaza and Israel.
Those with families or relatives
I don't think we
either
send weapons.
in Israel or in Gaza or indeed in Lebanon. This has been a very traumatic period. My government's approach is that every innocent life matters, and we want to see a ceasefire. We want to see hostages released. We want to see aid get through.
I like it that he said every
Gaza.
innocent life.
I must say, though, there are no Australian weaponry involved in what is going on in Gaza. That is just not the case. We have made sure as well that Australia has taken, I think, a responsible position of continuing to call for not just the short-term issues in terms of ceasefire,
to Israel?
aid to people in Gaza, the release of hostages,
to advise Israel,
but also our principled stance of a two-state solution. I want to see both Israelis and Palestinians live in peace and security side by side.
I like that.
Prime Minister, thank you. Mr Dutton.
Well, like the Prime Minister, and I'm sure like every Australian, I want to see peace in the Middle East as well. But what we saw when Hamas took hostages and took people into the tunnel network, that was an action which, if it had happened to Australians, there would have been an expectation of our government to react, to send in the SAS to make sure that we recovered those people as quickly as possible. And I want to make sure that in our country, people can celebrate their heritage, can celebrate their connections to a country of origin or to a country which is important to them. But when you come to our country, it's about celebrating being Australian, always respecting heritage and culture, but also abiding by our laws. And I think what we've seen in our society over the course of the last couple of years with fire bombings, with attacks on individuals, it's completely un-Australian, and it's not something that I think any of us would accept.
Don't watch the news.
I want to move on now. Here is Ian. Thank you.
G'day, Anthony. My question, I'm an owner-driver from Kings Langley up near Blacktown. Yeah. It's about the fuel excise. I'm hoping that you can match that from Peter, because I know you've offered tax cuts and that's great, but I believe they're not for 15 months. And to be honest, Mr Prime Minister, people are hurting now, not in 15 months' time. So, you know, the fuel is dialed into everything, not only personally people's cars, but for me and other truck drivers, it makes the supply chain cheaper and cheaper and cheaper.
106 fire bombings since
and I'll
March
say to Peter
2023.
too, if you've only promised it for 12 months, extend it. Extend it for 3 years. Extend it for the whole term.
Escalated
and then
since the
I think
end.
Australia as a nation will be happy.
Ian, thank you.
Since
PM?
the end of
Well,
a
thanks very much,
between
Ian,
Middle
and
East base.
thank you for what you do. As an owner-driver, truckies do it really tough. It's a tough job that you do to keep the country moving. And one of the things that happened during the COVID pandemic, of course, was that you did keep the country going, along with our people in our hospitals and retail and in aged care. It was magnificent the way that Australians got through what was a very difficult period. Look,
So
we
why has
have
the
to make
firebombings
decisions, and we were concerned that just a temporary measure, just like it happened prior to the 2022 election, it then just disappeared after a period of time. And what Peter's proposing is something that is temporary, that will, of course, because of the nature of it as well,
that has nothing to do
kick
with
in for a period of time, increase the deficit in the short term. What we have looked to do to target cost of living measures as cost of living measures that put downward pressure on inflation, which is why we have been successful in getting inflation down to 2.4%. There's more work to do,
synagogue fire,
but that's why we produced 2 budget surpluses. We've halved the deficit that was anticipated this year, whilst putting in place what measures we can to provide that cost of living support when people need it across the range of areas that we have done.
Mr Dutton, 3 years for Ian.
Well, Ian, thank you for your question. I do think fuel and the tax that's applied to fuel is a huge impost across the economy, which is why we've taken the decision, because a cut in the fuel excise, the fuel tax,
100%
it
right
means
there.
a 25 cent a litre reduction, not just for families and small businesses, but also for pensioners and other people across the economy. And as you rightly point out, it takes some pressure off the supply chain. So it means that, when you have a look at the fuel bill you're paying, think about the tradie as well, who might have 3 or 4 utes running around, and the cost each week being paid, or delivery truck drivers, farmers delivering produce to supermarkets, etc. That's where the real benefit is in the economy. I just make this point in terms of whether you make a decision about making it permanent. Good governments respond to the circumstances in front of them. And as I pointed out before, when we approached the COVID period, we looked at what economic things and decisions that we could make to make it easier for families and businesses to survive through that period. We didn't bake them in permanently. We provided them on an ongoing basis. We renewed them if we thought that the economy still required that and people still needed that support, which is exactly the approach that I want to take. So it costs $6 billion a year. It's a lot of money. The Prime Minister's tax cuts cost about $17.4 billion over 4 years, and then over $7.5 billion a year ongoing. Now, my argument is that there are many ways in which we can provide support, including tax cuts, and we would reassess where we are as an economy, as a people, as a nation in 12 months' time. And if we needed to extend it, then we could do that. But I would just say that if you bake it in and you put it as a continuing cost that continues to compound, because every dollar that Anthony Albanese is spending at the moment is borrowed money, and that has to be paid for. So we just have to get the balance right.
Does it make us more vulnerable not having those buffers that we've had in previous crises? In hindsight, would you have put more money, saved more, because we've got another shock, as Michael quite rightly points out, the Trump shock? Are we more vulnerable now because of the 10 years of deficits forecast?
Well, one of the things that we did, Kieran, of course, was turn a $78 billion deficit we inherited. We turned that into a $22 billion surplus. And then we turned a deficit of more than $50 billion into a $15 billion surplus. We've saved $207 billion. The bottom line is better off since we came to office, and that's made a big difference. And Ian, can I say, I was talking to a truckie friend of mine the other day.
He has no truckie friends.
And one of the things that he pointed out about Mr Dutton's plan to stop working from home was that if you put all those on the one hand, they're saying, yeah, we'll give you some cheaper petrol. But on the other hand, they were saying that people would have to drive more. And one of the things you know about being on the M4
I didn't like this,
here or the M7
segue.
Is that on the days, particularly Monday or Friday, because of working from home days, those increase on those days, it's easier to get around. That's one of the reasons why we put in our industrial relations policy, the right to bargain over work from home, and why we support it. Peter is now saying he does or he doesn't.
Which is not a thing.
We think that's an important measure as well.
Input and output, right?
If they're paying you because the reality is that
to work,
the government
today
was bequeathed a set of books where we were in balance.
That's how you should be paid.
And that's what happened when the Prime Minister was elected. Now, the Prime Minister can scoff at that, but that's the reality. Australians know that. Now, we had a situation over COVID where debt was run up, as we mentioned before, but the government has been able to achieve 2 surpluses off the back of Liberal Party economic management. And now, in the most recent budget, you've seen that debt goes to $1.2 trillion and deficits, that is, the government's running at a loss in every budget in every year forward. Now, if they were such good economic managers, why would it only be in the first 2 years after a Liberal government they've been able to...
on. So Albo's talking about if you have cheaper fuel, people will drive their cars more.
No. Saying Dutton's got this policy where he wants the work from home
so he's moved into
reduced, but that's only for public sector jobs.
I actually think people should
show up to the office.
Well, I think I'm okay with them being at home, but there should have been like, okay, if you want to work from home, you get paid 20% less, whatever it was, like average fuel cost for like the company should be, because they're saving money. Like there should have been a bit of a working out there, and now people are like, oh, if I'm going back to work, I expect to be getting paid more because now I have to pay for fuel.
But that's not how it works at all. So if the company's making heaps of profit, all the workers go, oh, where's my cut, right?
Yeah, no. What I mean is like...
No, I'm saying exactly what you're saying. And when they go at a loss, they don't go, oh, can you reduce my pay? Once you've got paid a certain amount, you're expecting that every year, there on out. You don't expect to go backwards.
Well, if I went... Like, it should have been a negotiation from the beginning. It shouldn't have just been like a blanket, oh, yeah, you can work from home. It should have been like, okay, sure, if you want to work from home, you can take
Are you talking about post-COVID?
Oh, just any time. Like before COVID. Like just regardless of COVID.
No, well, that's what's implemented it.
Yeah.
Is COVID. So the government closes them down and they go, to be able to work, we have to do it from home because of isolation,
Yeah.
And then they've just carried that through till still ongoing.
I'm just going to take a quick break, ladies and gentlemen, and we'll be right back.